Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the SAP Fiori-side chat. We are very excited to have you again with us. My name is Eugen Winschel, and I'm from the SAP Experience Product Management team. And I'm joined by my co-host Keith Fischer and Peter Spielvogel today. Good morning, Keith. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning. Good morning, Eugen.
Good morning. From sunny Silicon Valley.
Always sunny in California. Today's topic for the Fiori-side chat is the SAP Fiori launchpad. And today we have a slightly adjusted format to make it more interactive. We will actually have a panel discussion today. That means more conversations and real-time Q&A and less slides. So we actually have invited our experts on the Fiori launchpad, Thomas Hensel, Tom Reis, and Paul Thomas. And welcome, guys.
Yeah, welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
And to make it truly interactive, we actually want to invite all of you to ask questions and comment during the presentation. So before we get started, we wanted to set a few ground rules. And Keith, do you want to do that?
Yeah, sure, everyone. So yeah, first and foremost, I'm really excited to have Thomas Hensel, Thomas Reis, and Paul Thomas with us. As a reminder to everybody, this is both an internal and external call. So you have customers, partners, and SAP employees on it. We always want to keep some level of professionalism. And we're not here to sell you anything, and we do ask that we try not to promote third-party tools or technologies in the discussion. We are SAP technology focused today. So those are our ground rules. Please make sure you take advantage of the chat and introduce yourself. It's a place where you can ask questions as well as in the Q&A panel. All of these are resources available to you. And so with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Thomas Hensel and our panel for some brief introductions, and we'll dive right in.
All right, so let me start. Welcome also from my side. I'm really excited to be part of that Fiori-side chat today. I'm Thomas Hensel. I'm a product management expert for the Launchpad and Portal. I have a special focus here on cloud platform, but also, of course, covering topics like the Fiori deployment options, Fiori Cloud, and things like this. So really excited and looking forward to our discussion today.
Great, welcome.
Perfect, so taking over. So my name is Paul Thomas. I'm as well part of the member of the SAP UX product management team, but spent quite some time in consulting as well. So I'm looking after UX architecture topics, deployment topics, landscape evolution, all about these ones. Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just say third host or expert, so to speak, Tom Reis. Been at SAP since '93, so a lot of different topics. The last 6 years in the global design user experience area, product manager for Fiori kind of holistically, so especially the Fiori innovations, so Fiori 2.0 in the past, conversational user experience, and of course now very much Fiori 3. So looking forward to giving you some insights holistically what's coming, and of course also the benefits of the Launchpad today.
So before we get started, let me quickly launch a poll, and I hope you can see that. Let me know if you guys actually can see that. Wow, and I like looking at the poll, actually, it looks quite amazing. A lot of people have used the Fiori launchpad for years, not only recently, but for years. Wow, nice.
That's great. We'll dive into the more technical side of things pretty quick, I presume. So
okay, good. Yeah. So maybe first opening question to you guys, to the panel. What is the most valuable thing to customers about the SAP Fiori launchpad? What is the one thing that we need to know? Maybe we start with you, Thomas Hensel.
Yeah, I mean, as you can assume, we have a lot of discussions with customers these days about how Fiori and the Launchpad can help providing users really the true central entry point. And we know that this has been a journey for a lot of our customers. We know there's a huge footprint in using classic SAP GUI and the regular tools. And what we see is that a lot of customers and partners want to go with us that journey to Fiori Launchpad. As the Paul indicates, a lot of are on their way, but we also know that it takes quite some learning curve to get started. That's why we are also here to support with guidance and best practices. And we have some homework to do from SAP, improving the tools, and we'll talk about this later on. making the consumption, the setup, the operations easier. So a lot of things that we want to help customers with re-establishing that central entry point for the user, so they don't have to work with each and every single system individually, but have really that common entry point. So that's really something I'm excited about, that we have a very comprehensive tool set here available, and happy to go into more details together here with our panelists today.
Great.
And that's perhaps just Paul jumping on what Thomas just said. From my point of view, it's as just said, the central entry point, which is quite an important fact of the Fiori launchpad. And on top, the additional central services the Fiori launchpad provides, right? So with the capabilities of search, with the notifications integrated and so on. So that wherever you are, from your daily work, from wherever application you're working with, that you have always access to these kind of central services. That's from my point of view something which is coming really on top of the central entry point, and perhaps it's some additional value and additional difference to earlier solutions we had. So with the SAP NetWeaver portal and similar tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I can even just give you a 60-second look at, I don't know how many of you have actually already been using Fiori 3. I saw obviously from the poll, it's 74% you've been using Launchpad for years, but maybe just give you an example. Let me just share my screen. Some of the aspects that are new with Fiori 3 with the Launchpad. So of course, if you've been using it a long time, you know, of course, you can personalize everything. What's new with Fiori 3 is actually this navigation. So of course, you can find apps very easily using search, of course, you know about this, or of course, using the app finder. But what's new is also that you have this very simple menu here. So of course, the idea is always a recommendation, always put only the apps on your homepage that you use regularly. And then the question then, of course, was, well, how do you find the other apps that you don't use so regularly? Now you can actually very easily, you know, find them here using this this menu. So let's say go to, I don't know, let's say globalization, I think it was. There you see the apps that are not on the homepage. You can also use the menu here to actually navigate also to the homepage apps. So, you know, stock monitoring is this one here, for example. So you see those three apps. So, and I think one other thing I want to show you just very briefly, of course.
Is there a search also in addition to the scrolling?
Absolutely. So you can search, of course, you know, for the app name if you want. So, you know, let's say sales orders, for example, sales order. And then you've got the apps immediately available. That's pretty cool. What's also cool about the search is you can, let's say you're just looking, customers called and you're looking for a customer reference ABCBA. You don't have to even say, you just type in ABCBA. It's searching across all the search models. And there you go. You found that in this case, it's a sales order that has that customer reference. And what's really powerful, and that's what I want to show, and I don't want to spend all the time doing demos. If we, let's say, go into an application, this Launchpad is available, of course, also for the classic UI. So it's not just for Fiori apps. So if you go, let's say, we go and have a look at the open sales orders, for example, you know, we provide this whole navigation network from the Fiori apps. You can, you know, click on an ID, and here you actually see some classic UI. So let's go into the change sales order VAO2. So those who know SAP systems, ERP systems, at least will know about this. And here we have the classic UI, the good old VAO2, embedded in the Launchpad. And of course, that means you also have search available wherever you are, and of course, notifications and so on, all available in this classic UI. And you can, you know, seamless navigation, go back. And what's pretty cool about this whole navigation network, I mean, I guess if you've already been using Fiori, you know about it. You can, you know, add more links. So you can have, you know, maybe manage sales orders for services and so on, and then navigate to that. So this is all personalizable. If I go here, this is kind of the default display. You see here, you know, the sold to party, and the same thing applies here. So for the sold to party, you have some attributes, and you can, you know, you can add more links here, customer 360 view, etc. So you've got the seamless integration, not only of the Fiori apps, but also the classic UIs in the Launchpad. And that's something, you know, maybe for the discussion, I'll stop sharing now.
Maybe you can keep the screen.
Yeah.
Because I want to elaborate on this. What I really like a lot is that harmonized experience that we just saw. I mean, we recognize that, of course, not everything is SAP UI5 based, right? The more we go into S4 landscapes, the more you see those renovated applications based on UI5 technology, but still there's a set of classic WebDimpro and Web GUI based applications. But from an end user perspective, it's really all the Fiori 3 theme, right? That common look and feel. We're working on the common placement of buttons, orientation, the end-to-end flow. So for the end user, actually, in that transition towards more web-based applications and UI5-based applications, there's a kind of smooth transition here because the Launchpad is capable of running all those things side by side, and even the navigation, which is, I think, a key part in it, making it much more easier to come from an overview screen and then go into a detailed transaction, looking up details, going back without really now remembering a transaction code and copy and paste some, what we have your sales order ID, or putting it on a sticky note, and then you go into the other transaction, and then you enter it there. Maybe you had a typo or so, but really that network of application that we think upfront from SAP when modeling those business processes, and that makes sense to really have a master or entry application or an overview dashboard like you see here on the screen, and then jumping into the detailed information. That's really powerful. And this should really help the end user, not only to have that one central place to start from, but also to navigating through the different process steps to get really the job done. So it's more than just the Launchpad. It's also about the navigation flow combined with the powerful search, personalization, but everything here comes together.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe,
And Tom, a lot of those apps that you showed earlier, they looked very familiar. If any of you attended in the last 2 weeks, you would have seen an overview page, a list report, and object pages underneath. And if it's not something that SAP ships, that's something that you can build on your own using Fiori elements. And those will look pretty much identical to what you saw that we shipped, continuing on that harmonized experience theme that Thomas just mentioned.
So I had a question for Paul, actually. So Paul, what's, from an implementation perspective, on the ground in the world out there, what are customers really passionate about? What are you seeing the value here? What's their reaction?
Yeah, as said, many customers, especially customers who are already used to front-end solutions of SAP, like the SAP portal, they are now going this next step in the journey to adopt the Fiori launchpad, to have this as a single entry point. And from a vision point of view, I think that's even going beyond the single solution, as we had just discussed and just have seen with the S4HANA. But when bringing this into the context of Fiori 3 and the intelligent enterprise story, then we do see this harmonization of the theme across the full SAP product portfolio. And that's something where we just have this starting point with a focus on S4HANA, where we have the Fiori launchpad and the Fiori design really nicely implemented, or where they're heavily implemented. But we do see that the harmonization of the different UIs is happening, and the theming is happening across the SAP product portfolio. So it's that when you integrate then in a central entry point in the cloud, different solutions, S4HANA systems and SuccessFactors, Ariba and others, that you really can integrate these nicely into one single entry point. And in the best case, even when we are having different technologies in the different solutions, from an end user perspective, this is completely transparent. And I think that's really a game changer, that you do not have to realize, okay, now I'm in the CRM system, okay, now my logon and my user menu is in a different place, but that you have this kind of same behavior, same user experience across the different systems. For sure, there will be differences. You do see the differences in the even in the S4HANA system with the different technologies. And the harmonization is sometimes even a challenge for end users, because in the first perception, everything looks the same, but then the little details might behave a little bit different. So while it on the one hand side, definitely an advantage, having everything looking the same, on the other hand, it might become from time to time a challenge as well.
Cool. Definitely. I saw some questions in the Q&A. Maybe just I can take some of those. one there is this in the cloud or on-prem. The system I was showing you actually was a cloud system, but it's exactly the same available also with S/4HANA on-prem. Of course, when the new release comes out, obviously you get some of the newest features, obviously towards the end of the year. And another question is, if a customer is migrating from Fiori 2 to 3, what will be the impact? Old FLP is still available. Basically, you get the new Fiori launchpad, so that's available now with the Fiori 3 launchpad, but the Fiori apps will continue to run, so don't worry about that. Obviously, as long as you haven't done any of your own CSS, which you shouldn't really be doing anyway if you're building your own apps, then otherwise you'd have to check that. And there's a question here about Fiori Elements, which Peter mentioned, of course, but basically Fiori Elements are actually building on SAP UI5. So if you're doing Fiori element-based apps, that is technically SAP UI5. It's just, of course, much easier because of the template-based approach.
Yeah, so specifically on that, should we propose Fiori Elements-based development to the customer compared to SAP UI5? It's all SAP UI5 development, and Fiori Elements is just a templated approach that accelerates that. So I think you need to look at what sort of app do you want to deliver? Does it follow one of those flows that Thomas showed in his demo earlier with either an overview, list report, and object page underneath? If it does, Elements is going to be the right approach. If you want to do something else, not a problem. You can use the same controls. It'll look the same using SAP UI5, but just different layout.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I just pasted in the chat also one of the links where you get an overview about the Launchpad and all the concepts. So there's a very nice website, experiencesap.com, and then Fiori design guidelines for those who are interested in learning more about the capabilities of the Launchpad and also the different features it provides. And depending on interest, we can go a little bit more details, but this is also some kind of link I think you can bookmark if you want to learn more.
Thank you. Hey, just as a reminder for everyone, if you are in the chat, we always love to hear your voice, but if you could just put yourself on mute, that way we're not disrupting the speakers. Thank you. So, all right, so go ahead, Eugen.
I had a question. Since we are always like looking out for creativity and innovation, what's the most creative use that you've seen for the Fiori launchpad?
That's a good question, because basically it's in most cases it's quite traditional, right? So you have the standard launchpad either in the cloud or on premise, accessing your S/4HANA system in most cases, or business suite systems. For sure, there are mobile use cases as well. So you have the possibility to pack it all in a mobile app, so that you have it in the Fiori client, for example. But there currently, and I think we have next week, there will be the hot topic, or the topic of SAP Mobile in full detail in the Fiori-side chat. But besides that, while mobile is to some extent commodity already today as well, especially in some for some specific use cases, I think the most creative one, but which I haven't seen really in productive usage, with the HoloLens. So having a kind of virtual reality access. So you have the virtual reality, and you really envisioned is via the HoloLens, and we're able to interact with the tiles and go into the different applications. So that was quite impressive, but it was more on a demo pilot mode to look what is the art of the possible, right? And how might the future of work look like, and how could we interact in a more interactive way. But that had been definitely the most interesting one, or most creative one from my point of view.
Wow.
So again, I'll throw one out for you. This was a couple of years ago. We had one customer, they were a construction company, and they loved the concept of the Fiori launchpad, but they didn't have any Fiori apps yet. So they built a launchpad, and they launched 200 SAP Screen Personas flavors from their launchpad as tiles in there, with no UI5 based Fiori apps underneath. I would hope by now they've transitioned and are using a blend of those, but I thought that was a pretty creative use.
Did you say that was a construction company?
Construction, yeah.
Did they use the tiles for doing the bathroom, or?
I've got I
Kitchen
heard of
backstop.
an interesting case, similar but even more strange perhaps. A partner company actually was using UI5 and the Launchpad to provide the user interface for a complete non-SAP system environment. So they were building a whole load of Fiori apps, but hooking it up to a complete non-SAP backend system. So the customer didn't have any SAP actually, ERP or business solutions. They were simply using UI5 and the Launchpad and partly Fiori elements for providing the user experience to the end users for a non-SAP system. That's also quite a unusual use case, but shows how powerful it can be.
This shows the potential of the Launchpad, right? I mean, compared to the classic SAP log-on, which was capable of loading our SAP transactions in the past, the Fiori Launchpad is web-based, and I mean, anything that has a URL can be launched from there. So it's really bridging that world from the classic GUIs and WebDimpro applications now to the modern world with the Fiori elements and SAP Fiori-5 and even non-SAP UI technologies. And it's at the customer's pace to decide how much of the old transactions you maybe want to replace by modern new applications or how you want to complement this. And the Launchpad can be that entry point for the end user, independent of that technology at the end of the day, to launch it in that Fiori style type of experience. Or if you want, of course, there are also branding capabilities, so you can change the colors and the logos of the Launchpad to reflect it more to the corporate branding. But from a technology perspective, it's really kind of that enabler of its central entry point for the end users, whether it's SAP standard applications, custom build, or maybe third party.
So let me ask that question. If the Fiori Launchpad is so great, why do we sometimes see customers not adopting it?
William, before we go into that, Thomas mentioned central entry point. There's a question in the chat. Any idea when the central SAP Fiori Launchpad will be available? And maybe before answering that, maybe talk about what's the difference between what Tom Rice showed in his demo, which is the Fiori Launchpad, and this central Fiori Launchpad concept that was mentioned here in the chat.
Yeah, maybe let me elaborate a bit on this. And I wanted to share my screen. Give me a second. I think share this one. Move this away. And so what we have available, and I hope you can see my screen, is it's a central guide. I think that is really highly recommended because, as Peter said, there are quite a few options nowadays available how you can implement Fiori. And most of the customers, of course, started on premise with their classic front-end server for Business Suite, which is there and which is fine and absolutely relevant. But the more we look into S4-centric landscapes, then the embedded Fiori deployment is the default and the recommendation. And we will talk about implementation, acceleration, and rapid activation in a second. So we want to give customers the flexibility to, on the one hand, have kind of that built-in integral use of Fiori, which is applicable to each of the backend systems. But we also wanted to give them kind of a central place of access or entry. And here, obviously, SAP Cloud Platform as the integration and extension platform of SAP is absolutely relevant in order to provide this central Launchpad service. So what SAP is working on is a set of services that come together here on Cloud Platform, predominantly, of course, the Launchpad, but also alongside inbox, notifications, single sign-on, and many more, to have this cloud-based Launchpad, which is then capable of not just launching or addressing a single system like Business Suite or a single S4 system, but really serving as the central entry point across cloud and on-premise solutions. And this will be indeed then growing and being enhanced with some special capabilities beyond what you know from the classic front-end server or the classic SAP Fiori launchpad on ABAP, to really bring together different assets, different technologies, cloud, on-premise, and so on, into that one central entry point. So we can elaborate a little bit more, I think, from time perspective, but I want to pause here maybe for further questions. We have a very comprehensive guide. I shared a link, as I said, in the chat, that lists the different options you have, starting with a single system, Business Suite or S4, with kind of the local launchpads which come with the respective product, and then kind of this central launchpad on the cloud, which is then the unifier across cloud and on-premise. Just to give you an idea, and regarding the timeline, I think this was the initial question, we released that launchpad capabilities on Cloud Platform, Cloud Foundry in October last year in the very, let's say, initial version. And since then, of course, we are evolving it. The good thing of the cloud is that we have our regular shipments on a monthly basis. So the service is evolving, and we are adding more and more capabilities for managing content and all the launchpad artifacts there. And in particular, also enhancing the integration capabilities to backend systems like Business Suite and S4 to really retrieve content from there. So that's something we will do in the next couple of months. And then I hope by the time of TechEd in fall this year or latest end of year, we have a meaningful functional scope available on the cloud platform to really help you get started with that central launchpad.
And there was one question in the Q&A where the question, okay, how does it fit together with the central Fiori launchpad? Is the enterprise portal now dead, or how does it look like? And I think here it's important to be aware that the enterprise portal is as well part of the maintenance extension, which happened beginning of the year. So enterprise portal for sure is not dead. It's still around until now 2027. But I think the strategic direction that's with the Fiori launchpad. So the innovation adoption and the new features, that's something where the focus is more on the central Fiori launchpad. But Thomas, not sure if you have any additional comments on that one.
Yeah, I mean, the two main platforms where the launchpad capabilities are enhanced further is, on the one hand, of course, ABAP. This is the biggest footprint or customer base that we have, and obviously here we need to further improve the tools. So we have the Fiori launchpad designer there for quite a while, and we got a lot of feedback from our customers and partners that it has to be easier to maintain the catalogs and tiles and the configurations and all those assignments. So we're working here on improving the ABAP-based Fiori launchpad administration tools to make it more convenient and easy to administer the content. And the other big area is, of course, cloud platform. So here as well, we have to enhance our administration tools for managing that central launchpad, in particular what we call content federation, which means connecting to the respective systems you see here on that slide, like S4 on-premise, S4 cloud, your custom-built applications, which you probably deploy and run on the cloud platform. So all those things have to come together, and therefore, of course, we are investing here in cloud platform. It's absolutely strategic for SAP. And as Paul said, for the enterprise portal, it's more or less in maintenance mode. So investments on the portal side are mainly addressing this integration into a central launchpad perspective. So the enterprise portal may serve then as yet another content provider. For example, if you have some WebTempo Java still running on EP or some BEX reports, but it's at the end kind of enhancing here this landscape that you can plug into the central launchpad, but functionality-wise, the enterprise portal won't evolve not much more beyond its current functional scope.
Yeah. But from my point of view, that's a very important message for the transition, right? So that still the customer can choose their own pace of moving from the existing solutions to new solutions. So there is still the long time support for the existing SAP portal solutions, and each customer can take its own time when to migrate. And then as well, it's not, as you just said, It's not this need that you have to do a one-stop full migration from the one to the other over the weekend, but you can say, okay, I now start with a new launchpad. I integrate my new S/4HANA systems directly into central Fiori launchpad, and my old systems, which had been connected to the portal earlier, these I integrate now into the central Fiori launchpad as well by just integrating the portal. So that's, from my point of view, a nice story where you say, okay, how do you manage the transition from the old world to the new world, and how to ensure that no one is lost on this journey. And therefore, I think this commitment in integrating existing solutions with the new solutions, I think that's really key.
Yeah. Maybe to elaborate on this, important is that with that new central launchpad on cloud platform, we don't make kind of the local stacks obsolete. So if you go with Business Suite or if you go with S4, there's the regular setup, the regular deployment and operations and maintenance and patching and you know how you configure your Fiori apps as part of a S4 system or Business Suite and so on. The same goes with the portal, which can stay for the time being. But on top, we have then the Fiori launchpad on the cloud, which can serve as this aggregator, this overarching entry point, right? So we have kind of a loose coupling between the cloud-based launchpad and kind of your local launchpads in the respective systems. The same goes for some success factors. They have their landing page or home page, same as for cloud and so on. So all those systems are set up and maintained in a regular fashion. But if you are aiming for really a true single entry point as a customer for all your employees, then we have here that option to put everything together and make the user really or give them a central place where to start in the morning and get the job done without the need to log on to system A or system B, copy something, enter system C, and so on.
So here's an implementation question around that, and I think I know the answer, but I will leave it to the panel experts. What would be this is from Hans, what would be the best approach for Cloud Fiori launchpad, using the Neo environment or Cloud Foundry?
So as you probably heard, or when you follow our strategy talks and roadmaps, then also here the main investments go in our Cloud Foundry environment. So we have been building up the SAP proprietary Neo-based data centers for the last couple of years, but we also have to admit or recognize that a lot of customers have, for example, Azure or Amazon strategy. So we are building out that additional parts here for our Cloud Foundry environment, where we have simply more potential in terms of scaling out to more regions and the data centers around the world. So there's a huge investment here on that Cloud Foundry environment. And in particular, also with that Launchpad service that we are developing and growing and enhancing, this in particular is based on the Cloud Foundry environment. And this will also be then the go-to stack.
Maybe if I can pick up on one of the topics you mentioned was the local installation. So basically you have the Cloud Foundry or the cloud-based portal as a central entry point. That can integrate the local launchpads, if you like. So you could have, of course, a cloud launchpad or SuccessFactors, but of course also an on-premise S/4HANA. So the demo I showed you was S/4HANA Cloud, but of course it would look exactly the same on-premise. And you mentioned that we've been investing in making it easier to set up also the on-premise launchpad. So that's definitely something we're continuing to invest in. So it's not like that's in maintenance mode and we're only doing the cloud stuff. No. We're certainly also continuing to support the. Well, maybe I'll just share my screen just to show one slide here. We're investing in. You can see this. We're investing in making it easier to set up Fiori on premise. So we have this rapid SAP Fiori activation, and also with the Fiori Launchpad Content Manager, we've already done some steps, and it'd be interesting to hear from the audience if some of you have already used that and how you find it. And basically, and what's very powerful about this is if you want to try out the Launchpad with S/4HANA and try it out also not only with the Fiori apps, but also with the classic UIs, this navigation that I showed you, you can get that up and running really, really quickly in a sandbox system, because basically you just select the business roles that you want, like, you know, internal sales rep or GL accountant or whatever. You select the roles, you press a button, basically, and in your sandbox, you have the system up and running with the Fiori launchpad with all these tiles assigned, and you can play around and try it out. And of course, you can use the Fiori apps reference library to discover, you know, which roles are available and which apps are in the roles. And then basically in a sandbox system, you can really quickly try it out. And then with the launchpad content manager, you can take that as a starting point to adjust it. And we know that there are still aspects around authorizations, for example, that you still have to do the kind of mapping of the front-end authorization entities with the back-end. And we're investing there also to actually bring that all into the back-end. So the back-end ABAP authorization system actually knows about a Fiori app as well as an entity. And that should also then make this whole, this go live part even easier than it is today. So that's certainly an area we're continuing to invest in. So maybe I'll stop sharing there.
There were a couple of questions on performance, whether it was on the app. Someone was talking about Fiori app not performing well in a mobile device, and then there was something also on the Launchpad. So I don't know if someone wants to address. I think I'm trying to find it now.
Paul's actually already answered, at least in the text-wise, some links on the mobile one, some tips for improving performance. I mean, it sounds like you're getting very, very, very poor performance, and that certainly is definitely unacceptable. So, I mean, there's you know, we of course also have the Launchpad on our mobile devices. Performance there is fine. IT has invested a lot in the various aspects there. Maybe Paul, you want to comment?
Yeah, sure. I think there have been major improvements in the last years for sure. So and performance stays a hot topic, right? While the infrastructure around is changing as well. So you have new browser releases, new opportunities in the browser, and so on and so on. So that's for sure something where we from SAP are investing all the time to ensure that our performance is as good as possible. Nevertheless, always room for improvement. I think SAP Fiori-5 colleagues have done a great job in improving performance in the past years as well, in the past releases. And I think that was something I shared in the Q&A as well. There are some nice blogs around, some guidance, how you can leverage the new features in SAP Fiori-5 for improving performance, because that's something which is I really like in the SAP Fiori-5 framework. From a kind of enterprise readiness, that you always have the backward compatibility, so that even all the apps are still running smoothly. Also, they might not yet get really the improvements from a performance perspective. So sometimes some parts of the improvements you get just out of the box without touching your application but by just using a recent version of SAP Fiori-5. In other areas, you really have to revisit your applications, do some fine-tuning, refactoring to really get the benefits of the new features SAP Fiori-5 is delivering. And so besides that,
sorry. So Paul, one question for you is that we have resources here to kind of do a checklist on improving performance, right? I believe I saw somewhere out on a wiki somewhere there is kind of a checklist or something that customers can go through to. I don't know if anybody has that handy. We can throw the link into the chat. Otherwise, we can send it as a follow-up. But it's a common question, completely understandable. I mean, there's a lot of improvements on the caching side of the Launchpad itself, so you're not trying to load every tile every time you come back. I mean, those are some of just the simple things that have been done. But I think this performance tuning resource is very helpful. So we'll get that out to you.
So here's an interesting one that kind of points to the very structured layout of the Launchpad, which I feel is a benefit because you always know what you're getting in terms of the tiles and you can change the size. But the comment and question here from Filippo is, one of our bigger fashion customers decided to explore SAP Cloud Platform service in Freestyle due to Fiori launchpad not being flexible in terms of the look and feel. Do you know whether SAP Fiori will be more flexible in the future? And if yes, when? And I think that maybe that's a question for Tom Rice around the Fiori 3 and what we're planning there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, there are two aspects. So Peter, yes, Fiori 3, of course, is going to become more flexible. I would say also to a certain extent, we have a beta out there also of SAP Work Zone, which is kind of going to be an additional, more flexible way of providing kind of home pages. And one part of the Work Zone would be the Launchpad as well. So it's very, very seamlessly integrated, but that would also provide more flexibility. But of course, Fiori 3 itself also is going to be providing more flexibility, definitely. So let me just, maybe I can show you a slide kind of summarizing some of the aspects. So I already showed you the Fiori 3 that's available today, which is, you know, the new theme and so on. But we have some nice things actually coming very soon, in the next week, in fact, with the S/4HANA Cloud. Let me just share here. 2005. Share my screen. So basically, as part of the Fiori 3 concept, we're providing more flexibility in how you can actually do the layout of your pages. So today you have one long home page, and you can scroll to the various sections. And what we're planning to introduce is a concept of spaces. So you could have multiple spaces, and each space can have, to start with, one page, which has then sections instead of groups. And these, of course, would start off having tiles. And going forward, we also want to provide cards, so a more flexible way of visualizing data also on the home pages. And going forward, the idea is that you could have multiple pages in one space. So basically, you could have a space that could potentially then have a list of individual pages, and each of these you can click on, and then each page has then multiple sections with then tiles, and then later also potentially cards. So that means you have actually, today, if you think about it, you have basically the one page with the groups. So you have two levels, the page and the group. And here now you have four levels. So you have much more flexibility in grouping your content, basically, for example, according to the role or the kind of task or the work you want to do. So that'll be coming. I've been mentioning cards here. So this is an important topic around integration. You know, we've been looking at, of course, providing a consistent user experience across the various products that we have. So one aspect, of course, is this new shell bar that we've seen also in the demo. And the other aspect, of course, is that the various home pages, start pages, whatever you want to call them, have a different look and feel. And we've heard from quite a few products that they would like to have more than just tiles on their home pages, and you know, have a perhaps more interesting start by also giving people a kind of card visualization where you could have a list, for example, or some charts and so on. And so this is something that's also in the pipeline. I would expect that more likely to be coming next year, the first sort of set of cards, whereas the pages and spaces approach I just mentioned, that's already planned for this year. So I don't know, Thomas, maybe you want to mention something a little bit more also about the upcoming flexibility options.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned in the beginning, I have a portal background, so I'm very familiar with those requirements from customers, and the Launchpad so far has been very rigid in terms of how to structure the content and also the hierarchy. So I'm really excited to see these new concepts of pages and spaces and building a kind of navigation structure. I'm also going beyond the static tiles with dynamic tiles, cards, and so on. So I think we are definitely on the right track to provide with that standard Fiori experience already more flexibility for our customers. And as far as I know, there's already a first set of UI5, let's say, cards available, at least for playing around and then making yourself familiar as part of the UI5 libraries. It's not yet integrated to a full extent in the Launchpad runtime, but that's something we are working on. And yeah, so it will be a little bit of discussion then, depending on your specific use cases and scenarios, how much you can implement using the Launchpad and its flexible content structure, and where then Woody Portal or the new SAP Work Zone offering for building a truly digital workplace for employees, right? So Fiori is focused around applications, inbox, notifications, so it's all business process centric. And if you want to go beyond this and you want to integrate, for example, also collaboration, web content, documents, and so on, then this would be kind of an additional feature set required from cloud platform, which is of course complementary to the Launchpad. But this is what we call the SAP work zone for building a true digital workplace. And then you have capabilities, including the gem for collaboration, for example, more workflow and so on and so forth. So
and in particular, like you mentioned, documents, images or videos and these kind of things. So
exactly, yeah.
Guys, we actually get a few questions around templates and industry-specific content of how to build role-based styles for out of the box. Do we have anything for that, especially for our customers and partners and our colleagues in the consulting organization?
Well, we have with S/4HANA, of course. I mean, S/4HANA supports a number of industries, and increasingly so. And so definitely there are. First of all, there's standard content that we ship with S/4HANA on-premise that also covers industry functionality, and these both industry Fiori apps, but also the industry-specific classic UIs like the transactions in SAP GUI. So they are actually also covered as part of the industry content that we ship with S/4HANA. And of course, that's expanding over time as well, definitely.
And would be always interesting to learn in which industries there are perhaps perceived gaps and so on. So, I think there's a few industries where they might be already quite mature, right? So I do see in the retail fashion industry, where for all the store operations, there are already quite some Fiori apps around. Nevertheless, each industry comes with specific requirements, and I think here there as well, it's good to understand in which industry perceived as a front runner, where we are perhaps still lacking some functionality, and I think that's where the industry teams and the different teams are working on, but as well as across the product management team. For us, always interesting to see where we are in regards to these topics and coverage as well.
Here's a very practical question, which I think is going to be relevant to the audience. It's from Mahesh. Is it possible to make frequently used apps at the top of the Launchpad so the user has access to fewer apps? I saw something in the cloud platform that acts like this.
Yeah, so that's part of actually one of the concepts of Fiori 3, that we could even provide a card that has the frequently accessed apps directly at the top. The question, of course, is do users want to have it there or not? So it would, if we do provide that, it would have to be personalizable. So a user who doesn't want it could hide it. So that's something certainly that we have there in the pipeline. And of course, what we actually do have, and maybe I'll just share my screen because maybe you're not aware of it. In the Launchpad itself, I can maybe log in parallel and then show you later. There's actually if you go in the user actions menu, you can see the frequently used apps, and so it's a couple of clicks more, of course, than being directly at the top of the Launchpad, but you can immediately access your frequently used apps and also the recently used ones. So you might, of course, frequently over the last few months use a certain number of apps, but recently in the last hour or two been accessing different ones. So you can see both lists, and maybe I can show you that very briefly as well in a moment.
And besides
Peter,
that,
I see also sorry, yeah, Paul, go ahead.
And besides that, I think it's always a question of what's the scenario, the use case, because if you have perhaps company-wide frequently used applications or applications you would like to recommend and bring the attention on, I think that's something with the concept of the locked groups, where you can highlight specific applications and tiles on the top of the homepage. That's something lots of customers are interested in. But these are as well the flexibility you have as of today with a homepage, right? Either you give it completely to the end user, and the end user is completely free how to manage it as a kind of favorite, and then on the other hand, the other extreme might be in a way that you say there is no personalization opportunities for the end user on the homepage, but everything is just given by the company or by the administrators or the content managers. And I think while a lot of customers are somehow struggling, what is the right mix on the homepage, that's something which might become a little bit perhaps easier to decide for the customers when it comes to Fiori 3. where you have all in parallel, right? You can leave the homepage to the end users. You have the pages and spaces where the different lines of business or the different organizational units within a company can provide their own space. And then you have the app finder where you have all the apps available. So I think this challenge a lot of customers are facing today, that will be mitigated or hopefully will improve with the evolution of Fiori 3, where you then have this flexibility in how you would like to structure your content, design your content, and gives this freedom to the end users.
Yeah. And let me maybe just share, I've got it now, let me share my screen and just show you very briefly the what I was trying to show you before. So here we have the, we go to this full screen, the home page, and here if you go in the user actions menu, you have here the recent activities and frequently used. And if I just click on recent activities, then you see the recently used ones, or of course the frequently used ones. So that's of course a quick way. It's not obviously not quite as quick as if it's right at the top, but it's very, you know, very easy to access.
And the concept existed already in Fiori 2 as well.
Yeah,
right?
that's
At
not
this
new.
time
That's
in the me area, but it's good to see the difference. So nowadays in the user menu, it's the top right, and in earlier days in the on the left hand side in the me area where you have this list of applications as well listed.
And of course, what's also important, sorry, just is that the My Home area. I mean, of course, the Launchpad can be personalized by the end user. And so if customers, if you allow your end users to do that, they can, of course, also put their frequently used apps, the ones that they personally like to use most, they can just put them in their own group at the top for themselves to use. So that's also a very powerful approach.
Yeah, maybe just to elaborate on this, what with all the flexibility that we provide, this also means that there's some learning curve for the administrator who built the content, or the people from the line of business who have to structure roles, groups, catalogs, and so on. And the end user on the other side, which have now much more flexibility in terms of personalizing and adjusting to their style. So we also see that it has to be a combination of governance on the one hand, and also training and some enablement of the end users, so they really leverage the capabilities that the Launchpad gives to them in order to really adjust that virtual desktop or that personalized working environment to their needs, so they really can utilize all the capabilities and become at the end more productive, right? Because that's the ultimate goal. It's not personalization for the sake of dragging and dropping and reshuffling the layout, but at the end of the day, the users should quickly find what they are looking for and getting the job done. And yes, we provide more flexibility here, but that also has to be applied in the right way.
Yeah, indeed.
Morgan, I know you're trying to do the wrap here, but there's one, I think, very relevant question. Could you comment on Fiori Launchpad browser support? IE will be unsupported by the end of 2021. However, when you start the Fiori Launchpad from the GUI, Internet Explorer is the default browser. Is that going to change and customers experience more issues with IE than Chrome? So maybe that'll be the final answer, and then over to you for the close.
I think
I can say something. I don't know, Thomas, if you want to say something about UI5, the browser support, because there's some work been going on there.
I mean, in general, we are based on UI5, so we are supporting all the latest and greatest browsers, and we are trying to be as broad as possible in the spectrum. And when it comes to IE, of course, we are closely working here also with Microsoft and the teams. That special integration with the GUI and what is launched by default, I think we have to take with the GUI experts as well to make sure that once we face that timeline here, of course, that also maybe the default settings need to be adjusted.
And typically, hopefully, it's vice versa, right? So hopefully, I do access all my solutions via the Launchpad, and then have the GUI integrated in the Launchpad, and it's not the other way around.
That's right,
that
GUI
I start
for
with a SAP logon as a central entry point and launch then the Launchpad from the WinGUI. So that's definitely, and finally at the end, the source of truth in regards of browser support. Take a look into the product availability matrix. As Thomas said, SAP UI5 is heavily working on browser support as well. We do have the support for Edge on Chromium out there. So that's customers who are facing issues with Internet Explorer or the legacy Edge solution. That's something where Microsoft is recommending to go to Edge on Chromium. And you do see that SAP UI5 is already supporting Edge on Chromium on the long-term maintenance release on 171. And as well, Web GUI, WebDim Pro ABAP, Unified Rendering, all these classical UIs, they will support this as well with the upcoming service packs.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say absolutely, Paul. I mean, I've been working there with Stefan Beck, the chief product owner UI5. They've been working with Microsoft also actually on finding good solutions with Edge on Chromium and ways that IE support can continue, so to speak, via that kind of workaround. So I think that is looking actually quite promising.
Which is more exceptional basis. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so we are wrapping up. Maybe one last question in terms of where can we find information about the Fiori launchpad, like the latest evolution, stuff like that? Is there like one central point that you would recommend to go to?
So we have public roadmaps on sap.com website. There's a dedicated section for roadmaps. I can check for the link. There we have a central roadmap deck for SAP Fiori overall, including launchpad enhancements, both ABAP and in the cloud. So that would be, I think, the master for all the information related to what's new on SAP Fiori.
Okay, great.
www.sap.com/roadmaps. I'll put in the chat.
Okay.
And the SCN community is always a great source of information, right? Here, the S4HANA RIG team is posting tips and tricks, so that's definitely a good source. And as well, leveraging the community, asking your questions to your peers, to your colleagues, that's definitely very helpful.
Okay, then to come to the end of the session today, first of all, guys, thank you very much. It was a great session, lots of interaction, lots of great answers, lots of great questions. So thank you very much for joining today. And in terms of like next week, I'm sharing my screen. I hope you can see it. Next week, we have planned to have a panel discussion of experts around SAP Mobile. And day is Tuesday, as usual, same time, same place. If you want to actually review any recordings from previous meetings as well as today's, just go on the tinyurl.com link with SAP-Fiori-side-chat, and you will actually find the previous sessions as a recording, as well as you will find this one later this week. Then thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Great. It was a great conversation, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, good day, and thanks for joining us today.
All right,
Thank
Thank
you.
you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a nice day. Bye.